Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm sorry that I haven't uploaded a video in a long time, but to be honest, I was struggling with the way that I should approach this. For those that are new, I quit my job 3 months ago and started composing full-time for the first time in my life. I promised this channel would be a documentation of what it's like to quit your job and start doing this full-time. So I've been struggling with what to do next that would actually be helpful to you guys. Because as of now, 3 months in, things are going kind of great. So what I want to do in this video is talk about what my life has been like for the past 3 months, week to week, and then also talk about my backstory a little bit and how I got here. My hope is that this will give you some context to my current situation and also to what it might take to get here. So as of now, I'm currently working on a television series called Surviving Man. It's a web series on YouTube, but you can also find it on Amazon, Roku, stuff like that. It's a reality TV show that's basically American Ninja Warrior meets boot camp in the middle of the Nevada desert somewhere. I started on this about 9 weeks ago, and it's basically been paying my bills. I also have another show called Country Ball that's in production with the same production company, coming out sometime after Surviving Man. Basically what it looks like for me is I receive the cut of the episode either late Sunday night or Monday morning. I have 4 days to turn in my score, so I turn it in around late afternoon on Thursday, and then the episode airs Saturday. So it's been a consistent workload for me. You know, it's fun, it's challenging, and these guys really value my work. And that's super important because when you don't feel valued or you don't feel properly compensated, that's where the stress comes in. And so far it's been extremely stress-free, and I've just been kind of having fun with it. So it's important to say that I feel extremely fortunate to be where I am right now. When I put my 2 weeks notice in 3 months ago, I did not imagine having a consistent workload so soon after doing so. So that's why I struggled making this video, because to be honest, I didn't know how to put this into terms that would be helpful to you, because when it comes down to it, I feel like this was 75% luck. I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm making bank or anything like that, but it's definitely supplemented my income to the point where I've almost replenished my savings from when I started. So when I say this was 75% luck, I don't necessarily mean that I got the gig. It's just the timing. I had no idea that I was going to get this. I didn't even know these guys when I put my 2 weeks notice in, but this came right at the right time for me. The other 25% obviously is a lot of hard work, determination, and disappointment along the way. So a little background about me. I've always loved music and I've always loved film scores. I started composing at a very young age. After high school, I realized that I wasn't really good at anything else, and I didn't want to be good at anything else, so I decided to go to college for music composition. But something in the back of my head still always told me that it was stupid and that it was a pipe dream. Even in college, I always felt like I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out. Even though I had ambitions, in the back of my mind, I always thought that this would be a part-time gig. Part of that is because it's just kind of baked into our culture at this point. You know, musicians are told that they're never going to make it and they're never going to be the next, whatever. So when you grow up believing that, you never actually think of this as a possibility. After college, I started getting some work through sheer word of mouth. People that I met in college who knew another person who knew a director. So I ended up taking a lot of free gigs. A lot of the time when a director would ask me, how much do I charge? I had no idea what to say. And I basically just said, don't worry about it. This one's on the house. I love doing this. We're both amateurs. Why not? This is the single best thing that I did because, for one, I didn't have the bandwidth to do this full time in the first place. So I always told the director or the producer that, hey, I'm going to get to this when I have time. And also, it was just practice for me. If I go back and listen to scores that I wrote back in 2014 or 2015, they're cringeworthy. But mostly it just allowed me to meet a few key people. And when I think about the work that I've done in the past 6 or 7 years, I can always trace it back to these 3 or 4 people. When you make connections with people who see value in you, they will always throw you a bone. Even the TV show that I'm working on now, I can pinpoint through word of mouth how I got here. One person knew another person who knew another person who knew another person. So when I look back, I'm 28 years old. When I look back, I don't necessarily regret that it took me this long to get here, because I honestly don't think that it could have happened any other way. I spent 7 years of my life with 1 foot in and 1 foot out, working 2 jobs and then trying to compose on the side. And to be honest, this led to some really harsh upsets. In 2017, I was recommended to this filmmaker to work on this studio movie. It was pretty much the biggest thing that I could imagine doing at the time, and I was essentially a shoo-in. But unfortunately, I learned the hard way that there's no such thing as shoo-ins in Hollywood. At the time, I was still working 2 jobs, 1 full-time, 1 part-time, and I still thought that I was going to be able to score this full-length studio movie. When it was pretty much everything but a done deal, I decided to get all my ducks in a row, and I put in for time off from both of my jobs because that's when I anticipated getting the cut of the movie, so I knew that I was going to have the time to be able to work on this film. That was all fine and dandy until they started requesting samples. So even though I thought I was the guy already, I hadn't signed anything yet, so I was still in competition with people who were much better than me and much more available. So when they started asking for samples, for me to score this scene or score that scene so they could evaluate them, I did not have the time for it. I anticipated not having to touch this thing for another month or so I panicked. I rushed and I threw together some samples in my off time, and I'm not gonna lie, they were not my best work. And then somewhere down the line, they learned that I wasn't full-time and that I actually had 2 other jobs that I was working. So between that and the rushed mediocre samples, they rightfully went in a different direction, and I didn't get the job. This was about 4 years ago, and it was a huge blow to me. So you can imagine why that set me back for a while. I went through years of I'm not good enough, this isn't right for me, this life will never work. So I kept my same loop of working 60 hours a week, coming home exhausted, barely having time to work on music, only doing so when I felt really inspired to, and then just taking small jobs when they came my way. I thought that I would never break the cycle. So why did I finally say enough was enough? Well, a couple reasons. For one, when the pandemic hit, it cut my hours significantly. My full-time job that I was working at the time cut my hours, and my second job, which was teaching indoor and outdoor marching percussion, became virtually non-existent. When everything shut down, instructors like me were pretty much out of the job. So for the first time in 9 years since I was in high school, I was only working maybe 35 hours a week. This gave me a bunch of time to focus on music, and I started to realize what a life without a full-time job could look like. I started saying yes to more and more projects, and even though a lot of productions were shut down because of the pandemic, there was still a lot of stuff to go around. And I also knew that whenever the pandemic would be over, there would be a huge boom in production, and that people like me would be highly sought after. When things started opening back up and I was able to resume my instruction job and I was getting my proper amount of hours in my full-time job, I was way more stressed than I had ever been. Maybe it's because I had a taste of what it could be like to not have to do that anymore, to actually get up every day and do what you want to do. I knew that I had some money in my savings which would last me at least a few months if I decided to quit everything essentially and try to pursue this thing. But what I didn't know was how long it would take for me to get a routine or a consistent workload. What I found, and this is for me, so I still consider myself very fortunate in this regard, but as soon as I decided to stop doing the 1 foot in, 1 foot out thing and just go for it, the work practically came to me. Once you decide to take yourself seriously, your attitude changes. I think that people around you can tell, and the professional people can especially tell. As soon as I had the bandwidth, and I knew I had the bandwidth, I started getting offers. And I recognize that none of that would have been possible if it weren't for the 6 or 7 years of doing nothing but either free work or short films or things like that. Building these connections so that I have a solid network of people who can give me work. So when is the right time to quit your job and go full-time yourself? The answer is, I honestly do not know. For me, I think it's kind of that experience, chicken and the egg story. How do you get the job with no experience, and how do you get experience without getting the job? It really depends where you're at in your career. If you're just starting out and you're playing with sample libraries and you're composing for the first time, don't be afraid to do free work. I'm not suggesting that you should willfully be taken advantage of or anything like that, but free work will always lead to more work. And at the very least, that solves the chicken and the egg story. You get the experience, and most of all, you make connections with people that you're probably going to be working with for the rest of your life. I would say wait until you have a decent savings to sort of pad you out until you get consistent work. And then if you're comfortable and you feel like you have nothing to lose, rip the Band-Aid off. Nothing in this industry is more precious than your time, so you have to have time to give. Anyway guys, I hope this video has been helpful. Please like and subscribe if you liked the video. If not, please angrily tell me in the comments. If you guys have any questions for me, please leave them down there too. I promise I'll get to them in the next video. Alright guys, see you next time.